This is just an excerpt from a full episode. If you enjoyed what you hear here, go check out other full episodes, either on YouTube or as part of the podcast feed. Enjoy! Moving on now to nationalised social media news. A question has been posed recently in the news. If Facebook and Google were to limit their services in Australia, could the ABC run a social network? It'd be a publicly funded social network run by the ABC. You may have heard that Facebook has warned that it will block Australians from sharing news if the landmark plan to make digital platforms pay for news content becomes law. I mean, the good news is that this will limit the amount of false news that your aunt and uncle can share, unless someone circumvents this by the devious act of maybe taking screenshots or making memes. Fortunately, those things aren't very popular, so that won't happen. There is no word yet on blocking conspiracy theories. However, I suppose we'll just have to wait and see how much money that they can make by allowing them to run wild over their platform before we decide to discuss it. Google, however, has already just accepted that the change is coming and that they're going to be paying for news, putting an end to the question which overreaching digital corporation stealing your private data is worse. To be fair, it wasn't much of a fight. It's like comparing HPV to HIV. Sure, they're both things that we can't get rid of, but thanks to advances in medicine, only one of these things will have devastatingly negative impacts on everyone you contact for the rest of your life. Now, the fun thing for you, the listener, is you get to decide which is which in this simile. It's a choose your own destruction novel, and I'm fully invested. The proposal for the platform hosted by the ABC is among a raft of risk mitigation proposals in a report commissioned by the Centre for Responsible Technology. They called it Texit. Can Australia survive without Google and Facebook? A terrible title for a report. If I had handed in a report with the portmanteau Texit, I'd be dropped to an automatic C for not using real words. And that's if I wasn't exiled from class forever. Exit pursued by an F. The proposed platform would supposedly connect the community without harvesting data in the way that Google and Facebook do. A proposal that I am inclined to believe, as the ABC know nothing about the people who use their service, as is evidenced by the fact that if they did, they wouldn't have made so many series with Chris Lilly, and we would be on season 30 of Round the Twist. The major plus being that the ABC has a charter of behaviour, which would no doubt be strictly adhered to when posting on the ABC social network. They want us to believe that they could rely on the wide reach of the ABC across local, regional, and national communities, as well as the trust invested in the institution by the public. Trust in the ABC. Now that's a bit of a novelty. The Conservatives don't trust it because it has a reputation for being too left-wing, aka not being Sky News After Dark, and progressives are questioning of it as it is at the constant dread of having its funding slashed even more, and so lobs softball questions at the incumbent political party in video spaces and saves all their hard criticisms for the place that nobody is looking, beyond the headline of an article. An ABC platform which engages the community, allows for genuine exchange and influence on decision making, and applying principles of independent journalism and storytelling would provide real value to the local communities starved of civic engagement. That's according to the report. Now government would be uniquely placed to handle such demands after the raging success of their MyGov and ATO sites at the beginning of the pandemic, after their huge success of the census and the Queensland homeschooling websites. Good to see where all our money is going. The ABC barely gets funding to run a TV/news outlet, let alone the added cost of running as a social media platform. The only way it could possibly prove viable would be to run a collection plate of pieces of information that could be purchased by interested parties who are looking to better promote their products, possibly putting the ABC in violation of a number of laws, depending on which government was in charge and if they got to benefit, which would finally make the ABC capable of making money without selling ads, well, at least without directly selling ads, finally making it what the libs have been pushing for years. So look, maybe, just maybe, a social media platform may be the only way that it sees any funding. At least we could use the money to develop quality local TV shows that nobody would watch until they were remade by an overseas outlet and then sold back to us. We should develop viable alternatives to Google and Facebook, such as national online social platform hosted through the ABC. This could be built on existing ABC digital capabilities and projects such as Australia Talks, Triple J Unearthed, and the discontinued ABC Open. This was done just 2 weeks after Win announced the closure of 4 of its regional newsrooms. ABC Open was a platform for community-led regional and rural stories, encouraging users then to use Instagram and the ABC My Photo platform instead, of a platform that nobody has ever heard of and nobody knows what it does. ABC Open wasn't promoted or supported by the ABC for more than a year, but the stories it produced, which number nearly 193,000, had still been hosted in one place on a dedicated website. Sounds a lot like the fate of MySpace, if you ask me. Look, for starters, if you're going to run a successful social media platform, you need to decentralize. It's essential. How else can Facebook avoid paying taxes if it wasn't headquartered in Ireland despite doing most of its business in the US? Secondly, you can't really build on something that's been discontinued now, can you? That would require both continuity and change. A statement so oxymoronic, it could never possibly be touted as something to be taken seriously. Certainly not in a political party context. Now, you could argue that something was rebooted, reimagined, or maybe a requel, which is a new term I'm floating, where we pick an arbitrary point in the timeline, pretend that nothing has happened beyond that point, and create a new sequel. The filmic equivalent of sticking your fingers in your ears and shouting, la 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 la, I'm not listening. But you'd be hard pressed to call it building upon. I mean, you don't want to DCEU your social network before it's even started. The government has been urged to develop a stronger Consumer Data Privacy Act ahead of the likely removal of Facebook functions and the potential scenario of Google withdrawing Google from the country. I mean, a possibility that is so unlikely that even countries that actively reject Google, like China, have been solicited by Google to negotiate their own version of the search engine Google. If Facebook leaves the country, the major threat to people's data will actually be gone. Well, if you don't count for Australian MPs just giving our data away willy-nilly and quite illegally. The report says that if Facebook refused to allow Australians to share news, the site would be flooded with misinformation and fake news, as opposed to now, when it is only flooded for a couple of days before Facebook reluctantly gets up and sighs and says, alright, I'll put up a warning. To prepare consumers for the impact of the removal of services provided by powerful foreign-owned technology companies, the government should invest heavily in Australian technology and startup companies, according to the report. I mean, we didn't even think it was worth investing in a proper NBN, really only recently backflipping on the development of it, although the government firmly states that this was not at all a backflip, rather it was a reverse front flip. The Australian government's attempt to curb the market dominance of Google and Facebook is one of several similar moves across the globe, including legal action in France, an antitrust suit against Google in the US, and the possibility of another in China, which to me is just hilarious because, come on, China, come on, China. You think Google are overreaching? Have you looked at your own past, or at least the version of your own past that you allow people to see? The report also urges a forensic investigation into how tech companies such as Google have become all-powerful in core public sectors including education, health, and government administration. Inevitably, some things will change as the ABC is exposed to the influence of the global internet. Play School will continue to fall under the rotten influence of the loony left as it becomes no jab, no play school, but their influence will be undercut, or balanced, if you will, by B1 and B2 as they form their own online support group, the Proud Bananas, the first unofficial alt-ABC group. They don't believe that just bear lives matters, no. All flora and fauna lives matter.